Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Today, I'm just going to talk about some frequently asked questions that buyers and sellers are asking, and I'm just going to answer them. Um, I pull up about 5 to 7. So hopefully, somewhere in here, somebody will get some answers to one of their questions. Okay. First question. Do you really need 20% down to buy a home? The answer is no, you don't. That is a myth that people think you have to have 20% down to buy a home. Now, there's nothing wrong with having 20% down because it can save you in some instances, like on PMI, if you have the 20% down, but you don't need the 20% down. For example, FHA loan, you only require to have 3.5% down. A VA loan, which is for veterans or people in the military, that is a 0% down loan, but you can still put money down, but it's not a required down payment. On a conventional, usually about 3%, but sometimes even conventional, you do not need any money down. So the answer is you do not need 20% to buy a home, but if you do have 20% or more, put it down. Okay, nothing wrong with that, especially if you can save yourself some PMI in the process. Should I get pre-approved before I start looking at homes? The answer is yes. People think the opposite way. They might say, well, I want to go look at homes that I want to see the home first before I decide if I want to buy them. Well, that only works if you're paying cash, for example. But if you do have a home to sell, or if you're going to get a loan from the bank, you want to know what the bank will pre-approve you for before you go looking at home, because you want to stay within that range. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to spend all the money that the bank pre-approved you for, but at least you will know they pre-approved me for $350,000. I don't need to go looking at a $400,000 house, because unless I have enough money to make up the difference, I cannot buy a $400,000 home. So the answer is yes. It is always best to be pre-approved first, have a plan, set a budget, and then you decide how much of it you want to spend, which will determine where you want to live and some of the things that you want in the home that you're going to purchase. What credit score do I actually need to buy a house? Generally speaking, you will hear people say you need to have about a 640 credit score. It is not a hard and fast rule, but that's kind of where you want to be, what I say, a middle score. So they'll take all three of your bureaus and they will look at all three, and the score that's in the middle, if it's at least 640, you can qualify for most loan. There's a lot of other things that go along with the credit score. So keep in mind, it's not just about the credit score. Sometimes if you have a low credit score, it might require more money down. And if you have a higher credit score, for example, you might also get some very special deals as well, special programs as well. But there is not you have to have this credit score. Maybe if it's for a particular program, but generally speaking, there is not a one credit score you got to have, but I would say you want to have at least a 640 in order to at least have a chance of getting the best possible deal, possible rates, possible programs, and so forth. Is now a good time to buy, or should I wait? There is never a good or bad time. Trying to predict the market is going to cost you. I just think it is. So here's what I say. If you find a home that fits you and your family, it fits in your budget, then go ahead and buy the home. You can always refinance the home later on if interest rates are a little bit higher than you want. You can refinance the rate. You can't refinance the price. Waiting can also cost you a lot of money, because if you wait, everybody else is waiting. And as interest rates drop, more people are going to come into the market. I heard a statistics the other day that, I hope I get this right, that for every 1 percentage point that interest rates drop, I think like 5 million people come into the market, something like that, close to that. But so again, there's no good time. The best time is when you are ready, when your situation is in line for you and your family to buy a home. That's the best time to buy a home, because I always say, if you go to the mall and they have a big sale, they have the biggest sale ever, but you don't have any money, now's not a good time for a sale for you. The sale does not work for you. Same thing with buying a home. Buy the home when you are ready. Everything is in line for you and your family. You find a home you like. It fits your budget. It fits you and your family's needs. You go ahead and buy the home, and you can always refinance later on. Besides the down payment, what other costs should I expect? Great question. Some people look at only the down payment. There's also other things that are involved as well. You will have what you call closing costs. Those are the expenses that you have to pay in order to close the loan. For example, your insurance, 1 year of insurance, attorney fees, taxes, all those things have to be paid as well. Now, there's instances where you might not have to come out of your pocket for those things, but keep in mind, it is still your expense. Even if there's a situation where, as an agent, we can help you save on some of those. Okay. But the other things that you will be responsible for is inspection. You want to have an inspection. You do not want to buy a house without getting an inspection. Even if you don't ask the seller to fix any things, you want to at least know what's going on. Termite inspection. The first one is home inspection. Termite inspection. You want to know if this home has termite, because if it does, you can ask the seller, hey, I need you to treat this home for the termites. The other thing is you're going to have your earnest money. So earnest money is funds that you put up along with the homeowner putting their house on the market, taking their house off the market, and you putting up money. That's the earnest money. So those are two. Also, you will need to pay for your appraisal as well. That is done through the bank. So not just down payment, closing costs, and closing costs are generally about 3 to 4% of the selling price. So they can be big. Inspection, usually based on the size of the house, both home inspection and termite inspection. And then you also have your appraisal fee. What's the biggest mistake first-time buyers make? I think one of the biggest mistakes you make is they talk about buying only based on a monthly payment, waiting until they get the perfect situation, waiting until it's perfect. I don't think it's ever really perfect. Okay. So I think if you, as a first-time home buyer, I think the thing you want to know is where you stand. So you should always reach out to a lender, find out where you stand, and figure out your budget. That way you can then make a smart move. Okay, you don't have to make this it doesn't have to be expensive. It really does not have to be. So figure out your budget is one of the best things you can do before you even start thinking of buying a house. Matter of fact, before you go to the bank to try and get pre-approved, figure out how much you can spend on a home. That way you will know, this is what I can spend. When the bank tell you, hey, you're pre-approved for such and such, you said, well, here's what I want to spend. How much home will I need to, and in which part of town? Because sometimes there's things that can adjust, that can affect that. Okay. So again, know your numbers, and stick to your numbers. If you say, hey, look, my budget is $3,000, try and avoid stretching yourself to $3,500, because that's another $500 that could have gone somewhere else to make your life a little more comfortable in your home. Know your numbers. Number one thing I would say, that no one mistake I think first-time home buyers make is they don't sit down at first and figure out what they can spend. Don't let the bank tell you how much you are going to spend. They'll tell you how much they will approve you for, but you decide how much you are going to spend on a monthly basis. Why should I work with a realtor instead of doing everything myself? Great questions. We get this question all the time. I don't need a realtor. You're absolutely right. You don't need a realtor. But however, representation is always a good thing, I think, personally. It's the reason why when you go to court, depending on the situation, you more than likely want an attorney. Do you have to have an attorney? No. There's no situation in America where you have to have an attorney when you go to court. However, most of the situation when you go to court, depending on what it is, you will want to have one. So my dogs are making a lot of noise. So let's do this question over. Why should I work with a realtor instead of doing everything myself? Great question. And the answer is you don't need one. However, you should get one. Here's why. Representation from a professional who does this every single day can help. It can 100% help you. It's like going to court. Depending on why you're going to court, you do not want to go to court alone. You want to have representation. You do not have to have an attorney. However, an attorney can save you money, can save you time, and maybe even save your life. That's the big picture. That's neither here nor there. But however, with real estate, you want to have someone in your corner who knows all the little things that can save you money, save you time, and prevent you from having a nightmare. For example, you're going to buy a home. Do you know anything about the contingencies? Do you know how to make sure that things are set up so that you don't lose your earnest money just in case? Do you know how to make sure that if inspection, something goes bad in inspection, how to be able to get out of the contract? There's a lot of different things. There's a lot of reasons and a lot of ways why you should have a real estate agent represent you, whether you're buying or selling. Now, again, you do not need one, but I promise you, one can save you time and save you a lot of money. All right. So, what's one real estate question you've always wanted to ask that you've never had, that you never asked? Hey, drop it in the comment below. I would be glad to answer it for you on next Fact Friday. Thank you very much.